This week on the Analog Circle podcast, Square Enix is changing their whole strategy when it comes to exclusive content. Nintendo gives us a window of when we can expect to see the new Nintendo Switch. Xbox finds themselves in hot water after shutting down several game studios. And EA wants to put advertisement inside of their AAA games. All of these stories can be found here and quite a few more in episode 209 of the Analog Circle podcast. I am your host, Kiaun Mitchell, and welcome to the show. Welcome. It is always a pleasure to have you guys here. Now, before we officially get started into the podcast, if you want to be a part of listener feedback, you can do that two different ways. You can either call in at 443-380-0281 and let your voice literally be heard. Or you can email the show, and the email address is simply the Analog Circle Podcast at gmail.com. So without further ado, guys, I do believe it is time to get into what we all come here for, and that is the gaming news that went down, and we got quite a bit of it. So let's get things started with IGN. This is a story that I got from IGN. So let's start off with some, oh man, this is the elephant in the room. Let's start off with some Xbox news. So unfortunately, Xbox is closing down several Bethesda studios, including Arcane Austin, who were the developers behind the tragic Redfall, and Tango Gameworks, who not only developed The Evil Within, but also were award winners, the award-winning studio behind Hi-Fi Rush. Now, when you look at the two differences between the Redfall studio and the Hi-Fi Rush studio, it is on two totally opposite sides of the spectrum, but yet both of those are being shut down. But it does not stop with them. Also, they're shutting down mobile game developer Alpha Dog, who developed Mighty Doom, and is closing Roundhouse. They're also closing down Roundhouse Games. They're closing them down, but they will be absorbed by ZeniMax Online Studios. So at this time, Microsoft has not specified how many staff members will lose their jobs, but that is a lot of people, I'm sure, throughout these several studios. But Matt Booty, who is the head of Xbox Game Studios, he dropped this news on the team via email. And this is the reason why it seems like these studios are closing, is because of a, quote, reprioritization of titles and resources, end of quote. Now, it was also said by Arcane Lion Chief Dinga Bakaba that, quote, and hopefully I didn't butcher that brother's name too bad, but he said, quote, the number of workers laid off in games last year approached or exceeded 10,000, end of quote. Now, also, if you bought Redfall's DLC, you will get they're calling it a, quote, make good offers, end of quote, thing that's going on with that, since the DLC has been canceled. And at this time, like I said, I don't know what the world this make good offers thing is about. So nobody knows what that could be. But of course, you guys are already going to see it. And this is the reason why I am bringing up the question for this week. But because of that, since we always cover the question at the end of the show, we're going to leave this topic for the moment. For this moment, we're going to leave it here until the end of the show. But this is tragic. This is very, very bad news. It's just been a terrible, terrible time in the gaming industry. And it's just been very, very hard on everyone. And it definitely shows. But we will definitely cover this a little later on in the show towards the end. But let's go ahead and let's move on into the next story, which I actually got from Forbes. So we finally have, now this is more on a good note, we finally have solid information on when the Nintendo Switch will be shown. And this information isn't coming from a so-called insider. This is coming from Nintendo president Furukawa, who said this on Twitter. Now, this is what the translation reads. It says, quote, "This is Furukawa, president of Nintendo. We will make an announcement about the successor to Nintendo Switch within this fiscal year. It will have been over 9 years since we announced the existence of Nintendo Switch back in March of 2015. We will be holding a Nintendo Direct this June regarding the Nintendo Switch software lineup for the latter half of 2024. But please be aware, and this is very important, but please be aware that there will be no mentioning of the Nintendo Switch successor during that presentation." End of quote. So, if you were wondering when Nintendo's fiscal year, what it's from, their fiscal year runs from April to March, meaning the rumors could very well be true that we will see the Switch 2 by March of 2025. Now, the thing is, the Switch has been, and this is on a side note, but it all has to deal with the Switch. The Switch has been extremely successful. Now, the Switch to date has sold a crazy total amount of 141.32 million units. That is sensational. Gosh, they just may possibly, they may break the record on the PlayStation 2. Matter of fact, I want to check to see what that record is real quick. How many units did the PlayStation 2 sell?
160 million units sold. According to IGN, the PlayStation 2 has long dominated the list of best-selling consoles of all time. With 160 million units sold, the next closest game-playing device is the Nintendo DS with 154.02 million units sold. After that is the Nintendo Switch at 139.36 million units sold.
See, and it's grown since then, so it's at 141.32. Now, will it beat the PlayStation 2? I don't know, man. I mean, we at least have bare minimum. Almost like another, let me see, we're in May, so June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March. We have at least 10 months, almost a year, until we'll find out something about the Switch 2. And just because we may possibly hear about it in March doesn't mean it's going to release in March like the Switch, well, the original Switch did. It may release later on that year, but having another solid 10 months to get out there and do some numbers, they may come darn close. But the fact that the DS came as close as it did within 6 million units sold of actually tying that record, it's pretty doggone amazing. But thinking about the Switch, will the Switch really be able to topple it? I think it'll pretty much fall in the same boat as the DS. I think it'll get close, but I don't know if it's going to actually break the record, because now people are finally going to start to understand that the Switch 2 is going to be releasing within the next year plus. a year and a couple of months, it will be releasing quite possibly. And because of that, people may fall off. Well, not fall off, but kind of fall back from actually picking up the Switch because they're like, well, hey, the successor is coming out soon. Why spend money on this when they're going to stop putting the resources and things onto that unit to actually keep it going. It's about to pretty much be expired in a little bit of time. So we'll definitely see what happens with this. And I'm sure Nintendo will keep the support going for some time, but you know what I'm saying. But, the other thing about this is it is good to hear that Nintendo will be having a E3-esque show this year. And they said, the president, Mr. Furukawa, I know I'm probably butchering that man's name, but he did say that they will be having it, if I'm not mistaken, in June. I want to make sure that I read that correctly. Let me see. Switch. Doop. Shucks. They said they're going to have a presentation. That's all I know. I thought I saw where they were going to have it in June. But either way, it's going to be later on this year, which is a very, very good thing. It's good to see that Nintendo will be there because for a while, I didn't know what Nintendo was going to do. They were very, very quiet. They weren't saying too much. And, it's hard to tell because Nintendo, they have no problem actually just completely not showing up. And yes, it is going to be this June. It's going to be a Nintendo Direct and they will be just talking about the game. So again, don't get your hopes up about seeing anything on the Nintendo Switch 2 at that show. We're going to have to wait until bare minimum March of next year to get any information on that device. But let's go ahead and let's move on in, or I should say console. It's a hybrid, so who knows? But we'll see what happens with that. But let's go ahead and let's move on into the next story, which I got from Pure Xbox. So let's talk about Phil Spencer. Oh, this brother, he is in a world, man. This dude is in some real fiery heat right now. I believe it was a report that came out that his camp or whatever it is in Fallout 76, they were just bombing on it, just completely putting it in disarray, players online. So, I mean, these guys are very, very upset with Phil Spencer right now. But the plot definitely thickens because in a tweet from Ryan McCaffrey, he said, quote, "I'll be interviewing at Xbox P3 and other at Xbox developers at IGN Live, IGN's in-person event next month in Los Angeles. Even better. It'll be," he says, even better. "It'll be right after the Xbox showcase. So I'll get to ask him about everything Microsoft announces. Join us. More info here." End of quote. So, man, this absolutely is something that I'm sure everybody, if nobody had too many intentions on watching it, some people have something against IGN. I don't. I think IGN is okay. I don't have anything against them, but some people do. But I am sure that because of the situation that is going on right now, the way that Xbox is looking, shutting down those studios, looking like they are in a bit of disarray, not knowing what studio is going to get shut down, when and where, the whole nine. I am so sure that everybody who has an interest in the Xbox brand, heck, I'm sure PlayStation fans are going to be tuning into this show just to hear what Phil Spencer and the team is going to be able to say to even remotely make this understandable. But like I said, we'll get into those details towards the end of the show. But it is going to be something. I mean, they already sent Sarah Bond out there during the Bloomberg interview. She was solo dolo. I said, dang, they just threw that poor woman to the wolves. And the thing is, I thought it was unfair because Phil Spencer has been here 10 years messing up the Xbox brand. The buck stops with him. Whatever he says goes. So for them to have her go out there, and I understand it's her job. She gets paid very, very well to go out there to handle these type of situations. So it's not a sense of, well, it's not a thing for me where I feel bad for her in that sense, because it is the job at the end of the day. I just feel kind of bad because I know that Sarah Bond came on a couple of years later after Phil Spencer had already set up shop and got the ball rolling in a particular direction. And now that we're here with this situation, now she's the person that has to go over that hill pretty much by herself, but she gets paid the big dollars for this. So it's not a situation, again, I just want to reiterate, where it's boo-hoo for Sarah Bond. No, not at all. It's the job. You signed up for it. You go out there and you do what you got to do to get through. But this whole thing with Xbox and everything that's happening, and the fact that he'll be able to talk to different developers right after the show. Oh, man. This is going to be something. I'm definitely going to be tuning into this. I can't wait to see what Phil is going to say. Matter of fact, I kind of already got the script already ready. Phil Spencer's going to say something to the effect of, we need to do better. We have to look out for our studios. We have to do better with the time management. We're continuously learning to do better. We're always taking criticism and having it be something that we use towards a common goal of becoming a better studio. I mean, y'all already know what Phil's going to do. I'm telling you, it's going to be something along those lines, because Phil Spencer, he's always apologizing, always saying he's learning, and always saying he's going to get better, but we have not seen the progress thus far. If anything, the Xbox brand keeps spiraling further and further and further out of control. And I understand that people want to talk about it's the suits and all of this other stuff, but god darn, it should have never got to this point. But anyway, we're going to wrap that story up right now. You know, as far as IGN, definitely tune in, because I'm going to tell you, I'm sure it is going to be quite a bit of fireworks, because there's one thing that I can say about Ryan McCaffrey, and I do respect it. He has never had a problem asking Phil Spencer some pretty hard questions. So I'm sure during that show, whoo, it's going to be something. I'm sure he's going to be throwing a lot at him, especially if some things happen that are a little questionable during the show. Like I said, I would not be shocked if they brought up PlayStation on that stage. It would not shock me. Do I want it to happen? Heck no, I don't think that should be a situation. But the way that they are playing the game right now, you don't know what the heck to expect when it comes to Xbox. So we will definitely see when the time comes. But let's go ahead and let's get into the next story that I actually got from Inside Gaming. So we understand that there has been no official announcement from Sony about the PS5 Pro, but that's not stopping people or news outlets from talking about it. Now, this time, Digital Foundry has come out to discuss the PlayStation 5 Pro's GPU. So according to them, it will have a clock speed of 2.18 gigahertz with a boost speed up to 2.35 gigahertz. The cache of the GPU sees the L1 cache double from 128 kilobits or kilobytes to 256 kilobytes or kilobit. It has to be kilobytes. It's KB. And the low cache doubles from 16 kilobytes to 32 kilobytes, both being down to, quote, accommodate higher ray tracing performance, end of quote, which sounds awesome. Now, in addition to the clock speed and caching, the PS5 Pro GPU will include new DirectX 12 ultimate features such as support for variable rate shading and hybrid MSAA. Now, overall, the system should provide, and this is the number that I was looking at the most because most of that stuff, if not all of it really went way over my head. So this number right here was the number that I concentrated on. So overall, the system should provide a 45% performance boost for games, which is excellent. 45%. Now, that is a huge difference. A huge difference. On top of that, being able to accommodate, quote, accommodate higher ray tracing performance, that is also a fantastic thing as well. So it seems like this PlayStation 5 Pro is definitely not taking or walking in the same footsteps as the PlayStation 4 Pro, because the PlayStation 4 Pro was just a bit of an upgrade, a small upgrade, where most people that got the PlayStation 4, they were not necessarily blown away by the performance. They said that they believe, different people that bought the PlayStation 4 Pro, and I'm going off a podcast that I've listened to, social media, different outlets like that. I'm not out here taking surveys from just random people. So I just want to let you guys know that. But the people that talk on podcasts and those different outlets, they said that the only time they really saw a difference with the PlayStation 4 was when it came to the PlayStation VR. They said it ran that a lot smoother than just the regular PlayStation 4 did. So this is good news, though, to hear that it should. And pardon my voice, I'm still hoarse for some reason, so please bear with me. But just to hear that this system should provide a 45% performance boost for games is fantastic. Again, with that ray tracing, being something that they're going to put a big emphasis on, this just sounds really, really good. Now, the bigger question is going to be how much is this going to cost? Because we know that these features, all of this stuff, it comes with the price tag. So are we talking about $600? Are we talking about $700? Are we talking about $650 to try to kind of meet somewhere in the middle? And on top of that, are we talking about more hard drive space? Are we talking about at least 1 terabyte, maybe 2 terabytes of hard drive space? And we do understand that that is definitely going to hike up the cost as well. But I think that would be a really, really good thing to do. I think that would be a nice selling feature as well, that not only are you getting more power, but you're also getting more storage as well. 2 terabytes, I think for $650 or $700. I don't think too many people would squawk at that if they were trading in their PlayStation 5 to actually get the PlayStation 5 Pro. I think if you could get around $250, somewhere around there for your PlayStation 5, being able to knock off that much, because even if it's $700, you'll get it down to like $450. After the trade in, you might have a couple of games you want to trade as well. You might be able to get it down to a pretty medium ground where you don't feel too bad picking it up. But of course, only time is going to tell, what this is going to be priced at. But again, it's always great to hear these updates. And of course, we have to wait for Sony to come out there and officially confirm all of this stuff. So I do want to say that, even though Digital Foundry, they are pretty much always on top of their game for the most part, I would still caution and say, take all of this information with the mustard seed of truth until Sony actually comes out and makes the official announcement. But let's go ahead, guys, and let's get into the next story, which I actually got from Fandom Wire. Now, keeping with the PlayStation theme, and this is a bit of an older story, but Horizon Zero Dawn is leaving PlayStation Plus on May 21st, which has stirred up the question of, does this mean the rumored Horizon Zero Dawn remake is about to release, or could it be a remaster? I'm not sure if it's a remaster or if it's a remake, because officially, I don't think PlayStation has come out and actually announced this. But the thing is, now that was during the time, I believe The Last of Us, it came out, and something else it came out that was remade or remastered. And it got to the point where we were all saying, man, God dog, are you guys going to bring out anything outside of remasters or remakes from your first party studios? And as it stands, Horizon Zero Dawn, from what I remember, I never beat Horizon Zero Dawn, to be fair. I bought it, but I did not finish it. So what I remember from the game, though, it was a beautiful game. Now, granted, Horizon Forbidden West, yes, it does. If my memory is, and y'all know my memory is terrible, but if my memory is standing, in the correct space, Horizon Forbidden West looked much better than Horizon Zero Dawn. And just the fact that, and when I say it looked much better, I don't think it was like a huge difference between the two. I mean, yeah, Horizon Forbidden West looked a little cleaner, around the edges, probably a bit of a bigger world, some of the extra features that were in the game where you could actually fly now versus on the PS4 version, you weren't able to do that. Outside of those different variations, I wouldn't say that Horizon Zero Dawn looks extremely outdated. I mean, I haven't seen it in a while, but I guess what I'm getting at, and pardon me for being so long-winded about it, is I don't know who asked for this. I don't even think this is necessary. And I think that this is going to happen because, if I'm not mistaken, they have a show coming out. Now, I don't know if it's going to be live action or if it's going to be an anime type of style show or whatever it's going to be. But I think that they're doing this solely based off of that. And we do know that it does help games to sell. I mean, we saw it with The Last of Us when that show was released. It did very well. I had a bit of a resurgence. We just saw it just a few weeks ago when it came to Fallout. That show had people that never gave Fallout a chance to actually go in there and become interested and pick up the game and actually play it. So we do know it does come with a bit of an effect that can actually get your product or your game in front of more eyes, of people that may not have ever given it a chance. So from that standpoint, I get it, but I still don't think that it's necessary unless they're going to include some of the features that they were not able to include in the original game because of the limitations of the PlayStation 4. Now, if they're going to give you those missions that they wanted to give you where you were supposed to be flying around and, getting from point A to point B, if they're going to give you some worthwhile features inside of the game, then that's one thing. But if you're just going to pretty much reheat the same thing that's already been cooked and try to serve it as a brand new dish, I don't know how well that's going to go over. But only time will tell, and we'll definitely keep our ear, to the gaming streets when it comes to this. But let's go ahead and let's move on into the next story, which I actually also got from IGN. So let's switch back to Xbox and let's talk rumors.
Rumor has it is something that only I know.
Man, I messed that up. But anyway, we're going to get into it. So according to a new report from Tom Warren, Microsoft has, quote, had internal debates, end of quote, about whether it wants to add newer Call of Duty installments to the gaming subscription service. This debate has been, quote, let me start that over because I kind of messed that up. But pretty much they're debating on whether or not they should put Call of Duty inside of the gaming subscription service, and that this debate has been, quote, ongoing internally for quite some time, end of quote. Now, those that oppose the idea believe Call of Duty revenue for Activision Blizzard would, quote, be undermined, end of quote, by a Game Pass release. Now, even though this sounds terrible if this does happen, Tom Warren also wrote that Microsoft, quote, has also contemplated, quote, a price hike for the ultimate tier of Xbox Game Pass. Now, once again, for clarity, this is just a rumor. So take it with, like I just said a couple of seconds ago, a mustard seed of truth. Now, on a side note, though, it's also talk that PlayStation could be doing a price hike increase as well. So this just doesn't seem like it's going to be pretty much just solely Microsoft doing this. We see this all through the industry, that so many things are falling apart. Money is being lost. They're trying to figure out different ways on how they can make the most money, but yet take so much of the cost out of it to keep the money coming in. So the thing is about this Call of Duty situation, if I'm not mistaken, this might have been cleared up. I'm not 100% sure, but I do believe it was something out there. It was an article. I didn't write it down. I should have taken better mental notes, but I think they did say that Call of Duty will be coming to Game Pass day and date, which is exactly what they should do. I mean, whether or not it's going to lose revenue or money or things of that nature, that's on y'all. This is a plan that y'all devised or Phil Spencer put together. This was what he saw as the future of Xbox. So if it loses money or you can't get it to be as profitable as you want it to, then, I mean, hey, look, you might have to pivot. I mean, I don't think that's happening because, like I said, I think they officially came out and said that it will be coming to the Game Pass service. But the thing that is a bit alarming, though, is if it is coming to the service, don't forget that other rumor that's going around that the ultimate tier of Game Pass could be getting a price hike. And with Call of Duty actually going into the service, I could see that happening because they're going to want to try to get some of that money back or recoup as much money as possible from that title actually being in there. Because the thing is, I know some people would say, well, this is a golden opportunity for them to get that in the service and have people go out there and buy the map packs, get the weapons or whatever stuff is in Call of Duty online, skins or whatever may have you. But not everybody plays Call of Duty online. I would be the only thing that I would play as far as Call of Duty goes, and the only thing that I have played in the past when it comes to Call of Duty is the campaign. That is it. 8 to 10 hours. Once I'm done with the campaign, I'm not going back to the game. I'm not trying to prestige. I'm not trying to get online and get completely tore out the frame by these guys. I'm just solely concentrating on the campaign, and that's it. So a player like me, a game player like myself, would do nothing to benefit the service. I'm going to go in there and play your game, and that's it. You're not going to get a penny, a nickel, or a dime from me with any of your transactions or microtransactions or anything of that nature. Now, granted, there is a big group of people that actually play Call of Duty for the online portion of the game alone. And that's it. And they're not even worried about the campaign. So who's to say? I don't know which one outweighs who. I'm pretty sure that the online community outweighs the campaign community, because we can't forget that at one point in time, a couple of years ago, Call of Duty released with only online. It did not have a campaign. And I'm sure that was pretty much based on the player count that they had for people that were playing online versus people that were playing the campaign. But nonetheless, this, I'm sure, if it wasn't answered definitively, I'm sure that at this upcoming show that Xbox is going to have next month, if there are any lingering questions that anybody is going to have about this game going into the service, I am 100% positive that they will talk about it at that show, especially if the rumors are true that show after the main show is going to be a Call of Duty show. If they're going to be doing that afterwards, I'm 100% sure that they're not going to have people lingering or wondering what's going to happen with Call of Duty. I would have said maybe in the past they would have done that, but right now they're in way too much hot water to just try to sweep that under the rug. They got to be as transparent as possible, because the brand is in a terrible way at the moment. And it has been for quite some time, in my opinion. Since Phil Spencer took over, it has been downhill for the Xbox brand. But we will see what happens with this situation. We'll see what happens with Game Pass Ultimate, if that's going to get another price hike or whatever the case may be. Because I'm sure, again, that if they were trying to raise that price, they would put Call of Duty in that tier. No doubt about it. But we'll see. But let's go ahead and let's get into the next story, which I actually got from PSLS. So staying on Rumor Boulevard just a little bit longer.
Rumor has it there's something that only I know.
Oh, man. Inside, I had to make up for that mess up. That's all that was. Oh, my goodness. But insider Jeff Grubb, who reported that a PlayStation event was happening in May this month, says that things are still on track at Sony's end, but it remains to be seen when they will officially announce the time and date. But another insider named, his name is Nick, I don't know this brother, never heard of this brother, but his name is Nick Bellatro. He said that his sources also don't have a date or time for the event, but are expecting it towards the quote latter end of quote half of the month. So expect something. He was saying expect something during the week beginning May 20th, which is, what's that, a couple of days from now. So next week. So we should be expecting to hear something next week about this event. But again, it's worth noting, no one knows if this will be a showcase or a state of play event. That is the bigger question, because I'm over here getting excited. In my mind, I'm thinking E3 show. Again, I know it's not called E3. I get it, but it's in the E3 season. So in my mind, I'm like, E3 show is happening, a big showcase. But it could definitely be a situation where it is only a state of play event. Because we have seen Sony, what was it? Did they have their show in late or mid-September? I forget exactly which show it, well, not the show itself, but what month it actually happened in. But Wolverine, it was the show when Wolverine. Matter of fact, I ain't got to wonder, what PlayStation show was Wolverine shown off at?
According to TechRadar, Marvel's Wolverine was announced during Sony's PlayStation Showcase in September 2021, with a brief teaser trailer giving us our first look at Insomniac's take on Logan.
Yeah, so okay, it was September, right? So yeah, September. So it's no guarantee that these guys will show up to the party like Xbox is. And I mean, look, Xbox is in freaking shambles right now, but I gotta give them some credit. Got to give them quite a bit of credit for actually showing up to do the show. And I know some people will say, well, they should show up and do the show. It's their job. Not necessarily. Not in this day and age. E3, again, it's so unfortunate, but it's a thing of the past. And these guys, these different companies, they can pick a random day to show you the things that they want you to see. It doesn't have to be an E3 season. So I do give them a lot of credit for pretty much keeping that tradition of E3 alive and doing it in the months that E3 would actually take place. And I also give Nintendo a lot of credit for doing it as well, being in June, so again, PlayStation, they already have a track record of not showing up on time when it comes to E3. So this rumored May show, it could just be a doggone state of play event. How let down would we all be if that was the case? Now, it does depend on what they would show, but we know that those are limited. I'm pretty sure they wouldn't have a PlayStation 5 Pro announcement there, probably nothing on Wolverine or any of the big titles, that would be coming out of Sony. So I'm hoping, again, that it'll be a showcase and not a state of play event, but only time will tell. Let's go ahead and let's get into the next story that I actually got from Games Radar. So let's switch over to some EA news. Now, in EA's most recent earnings call, CEO Andrew Wilson had some very interesting things to say that definitely raised a few eyebrows with a few of his comments. So he does refer to the next Battlefield game as, quote, another tremendous live service, end of quote. Now, I don't know if Battlefield was ever a live service game. I don't know. Anyway, but he also said it will boast, quote, the largest Battlefield team in franchise history, end of quote. Now, speaking of the team, it was also revealed that EA Motive have been put on Battlefield for the single player campaign. But just to reiterate, the game will have multiplayer. Now, that's something. That's the same team. If you were wondering who Motive is, EA Motive, they're the same guys that actually made the Dead Space remake, which had amazing reviews. People absolutely loved it. It was people that actually said they enjoyed the remake more than the original because they added those things that were missing from the original that made the remake so much better. And that's what I'm saying, just to back up just for a second, that's what I'm hoping. If they are doing Horizon Zero Dawn, they'll add some of those things, or what do they call them? Life enhancement, features into the game to make it better than what it was before. But we'll see with that. But so as far as EA Motive working on Dead Space 2, this is probably the reason why they are not, because they're working on the next Battlefield. But to continue on with this story, let me see. The game will have multiplayer. Now, as far as the release of the game goes, it won't be released until bare minimum after March of 2025, which, of course, I'm sure you guys already know, which is after EA's fiscal year ends. But the part that, again, raised a few eyebrows was when EA CEO Andrew Wilson talked about putting advertisements inside of games, where he says, quote, advertising has an opportunity to be a meaningful driver of growth for us. We have teams internally in the company right now looking at how we can do very thoughtful implementations inside of our game experiences. End of quote. Now, this was the thing. I'm all tongue tied. I do this every single episode, but this was the thing that got me. I said, now, advertisements, of course, the first thing I think about whenever someone says advertisements is commercials. You know, some people out there selling something, a lotion commercial, a doggone electronic commercial for a new TV or doggone cars, whatever the case may be. But then I had to sit back and I thought about it for a second. I said, now gamers, we are not going to put up with this. This is something we're not going to do. Buy a $70 game, a AAA game, and you're going to doggone have the nerve to put actual commercials inside of the game to disrupt what we're doing. I said, nah, EA has been a bad company in the past. They've had some real messed up ways about them, but I don't think EA would be that bold. What I think EA is going to do, and they've done it in the past, they're probably going to do something with some billboards or some soda machines or something like that. Put Coca-Cola on the machine or put some kind of, I don't know, some kind of car model on one of the billboards or something like that. For some reason, I think it's going to be baked into the gaming world itself. Maybe, I don't know, even different weapons. I mean, look, they could always go out there, get a Michelin S or a Smith & Wesson, somebody to get behind them to actually, you know, pretty much advertise. I'm not saying they should do that. That was a terrible, no, it wasn't. It wasn't a terrible, example, because Battlefield is coming out. These things are going to be inside of Battlefield, you know, so, and some of their other games coming up, as far as I can understand, that he was talking about, during this, meeting that they had. So I'm just saying that I believe that that's the way they're going to do it. I don't think it's going to be commercial based or anything like that, because that's too much in your face. But if you can actually do it in the background, you know, throughout the world itself, the gaming world, and show it off, I think that would go off pretty much without a hitch. I know some people are going to be like, oh, it's advertisements, this, that. It ain't messing with your gaming experience. You're able to play the game. You ain't got to stop. You know, you ain't got to wait for a 2-second load screen to have a doggone advertisement on it or something like that. I mean, of course, it is to be determined. We don't know exactly how they're going to implement this, but I'm pretty sure that the way this guy's talking, he is definitely going to make this happen. And I'm pretty sure that it's going to get him a pretty good payday if he does so. But we will definitely see what happens with this in the next coming months. But what I wanted to do right now, guys, just real quick, I just wanted to let you guys know just a bit of an update real quick. I did beat Saints Row, what would you call it? The reboot, Saints Row reboot, released about 2 years ago or so, sometime around there. Man, I'm going to tell you, I enjoyed the game. I did. I mean, it had some technical problems. Doggone. Trying to get some of the missions started, trying to get the queues to actually queue up and have you get into the mission. It was some problems there. It was some clipping that was happening during the game. Dialogue wasn't syncing up, you know, with the character's mouth moving. It was way off. But I will say, man, gameplay wise, that joint was a blast. It was so much fun, and I'm a sucker for any game that has great physics in it. If you got great physics and you got great gameplay, man, I'm a sucker, man. I'm a pretty much enjoy it for the most part. And that's what it had. Great physics, great gameplay, a lot of different weapons to choose from. The story was, the story was pretty much, I'm not going to say it was non-existent, but you know, you don't play Saints Row for a deep story or anything like that. But I will say they had a pretty nice twist at the end that I did not see coming, which was really, really well done. I did enjoy that. So overall for me, I would give the game, and I mean this, man, I would give it a a decent 7. A decent 7. Not a bad 7, not a good 7, but a decent 7. If you could get it on a sale, like I said, I got the game, I think for like $20, somewhere around there, might have been 15. And they threw in Saints Row the Third, the remaster that they did. Excuse me. They threw that in as well. So I was like, man, I wasn't mad at anything. Now, if I'd paid $70 for the game, yeah, I could definitely see myself not being too happy with that purchase. I would have played the game. I would have finished it, but no, it's not worth 70. And plus, the game is not that long. I think I put 23 hours into the game. 24, between 23 and 24 hours. And that was because I was doing a ton of different side missions. Because I don't know if you guys remember the episode where I was talking about the new Mafia game was gonna allegedly, rumors, saying that the game was going to have it so you could actually run different businesses and take over different parts of the city, with the different businesses you were going to be running. The thing about Saints Row reboot was they had that feature in the game, and I was running wild trying to get the businesses together, eliminating the competition, kept buying different businesses. It was so much fun. So that was where a lot of my time got sunk into the game. But if I had just went straight through and did just missions, I think I could have beat that game within like 10 hours. I don't think the campaign was really that long, but because I was out there doing those different missions, building up the businesses, I know I racked up an extra 10 hours just doing that, just trying to get the increases in money and all of that stuff. It became kind of addicting, actually. So again, if you can get the game on a sale, $15, $20, I think you'll have a good time with it. Truly, truly believe that. But, my gaming taste may not be yours, but so tread carefully with that. And as far as the next game that I'm actually playing, I'm trying to get through my PlayStation 4 backlog. So I'm actually going to start up Ghosts of Tsushima again and play that on the PlayStation 5. I know it doesn't have some of the same features with the controller, but I looked at several different videos and they said that it's really no difference when it comes to the graphical presentation of the game between the PlayStation 4 version and the PlayStation 5 version. They did say though that the loading times, and they showed it, the loading times are like cut in half when it comes to the PlayStation 5 version, but I'm not really going to trip on that too much. I just want to get in, play that game at 60 frames per second, enjoy it so I can keep on chopping down that backlog. But anyway, guys, let's get into the next story this week, which I actually got from PC Gamer. So the gaming industry, this is the thing, man. The gaming industry has been in a very bad spotlight when it comes to layoffs and losing money. I was just talking about it. And studios shutting down. We can see that from Microsoft. But they're not alone. Rockstar has done it too. But I think it's only fair, though, that if something good is going on in the industry and there is a publisher or a team that's doing well, we should also talk about that too. And the publisher / developer that is doing excellent right now is, drumroll, Capcom. Capcom is doing very, very well. Now, I'm sure some of y'all probably thought I was going to say something like Nintendo, which they're doing pretty good too, but no, Capcom is doing quite well. So, Capcom announced its net sales in the fiscal year, which ended March 31st, 2024, totaled around $979 million, which is a 21% year-over-year increase. Golly. Nice. Nice. Oh, man. Now, some of the factors that helped their numbers was Resident Evil 4 Remake, which sold 3.4 million units in the fiscal year, but has sold 7 million in total. Actually, I'm part of that 7 million. I bought that game. Street Fighter 6 has sold 3.3 million. Now, the thing about Street Fighter 6 doing these numbers, it wasn't clear or not whether that was the fiscal year alone or if that was the total sales of Street Fighter 6. So they weren't very clear on that. But Monster Hunter World actually sold 2.8 million in the fiscal year, bringing the total amount sold of that game to a crazy whopping 25 million units sold. And Dragon's Dogma 2 rounds out the list with 2.6 million copies sold. So Capcom is having its best year since last year. They're actually on record saying that this year was better for them than last year. So that shows that they can continue to grow, which seems, like a miracle in today's landscape, gaming landscape, I should say, that they're continuing to grow and get, better numbers, seeing more money. They actually said that they were giving some of their employees some raises, as it were, in a down spiral of what's going on in gaming. These guys are flourishing, doing extremely well. So it's always great to hear stories like this. It gives me a little bit more hope that, gaming in the long run is going to be okay. These guys just have to be a little bit more careful with the money that they spend. I don't think that you have to cut staff so much. I mean, golly, the guy earlier said that over 10,000 people have lost their jobs in the industry as a whole, which is outrageous. I just don't think you need to cut that many jobs. Just maybe cut back on the spending of the projects or something like that. Get more creative or something like that. But I just don't think it should come to that. But it is, unfortunately, but hopefully some of the bleeding will stop very, very soon. But let's go ahead, guys, and let's get into the final story for this week. And I actually got this story from VGC. Now, it appears big changes are coming to Square Enix. Now, this is based on a 3-year-long strategy, which it hopes will lead to, quote, long-term growth, end of quote. Now, the plan says Square Enix will, quote, aggressively pursue a multi-platform strategy that includes Nintendo platforms, PlayStation, Xbox, and PC, end of quote. So based off of this, if we're going off of what they said with this, it appears that Square won't be doing any exclusive content deals for any particular platform in the near future. Now, they also said they want to, quote, shift from quantity to quality, end of quote, and aim to, quote, launch titles, end of quote, that ensure excitement that will bolster loyalty to our brand, placing top priority on bringing smiles to our customers' faces, end of quote, and to, quote, keep and build on the fan bases for our major franchises by regularly releasing AAA titles, end of quote. So it does once again appear that this shift is happening, and the first thing that they're going to do is start making more of their games available for more platforms and not having anything be exclusive. Now, I'm sure that thinking about the PlayStation 5 and thinking about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I'm sure that was a wake-up call. And I know a lot of people said that the game didn't perform. It didn't do well. I know it sold 2-point-something million copies, which I said once, and I'll say it again. That is abysmal when you have over 50 or close to 50 million players installed in that base. I mean, you're reaching 2% of the player base at that point in time. And also people had brought up the fact that the game sold more on the PlayStation 4. That's a bit skewed only in the way of the units that were sold of the PlayStation 4. It was way more PlayStation 4 units out there that were sold that people had when Final Fantasy VII Remake released versus Final Fantasy VII. And I just said the name and I forgot it just that quick. God darn. Rebirth. So you kind of can't measure it apples to apples, oranges to oranges. It's just not quite the same. So, but either way, it seems like they're coming around. Who knows? Final Fantasy VII Remake may finally possibly release on Xbox. Who knows how long the rights, the PlayStation has to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Who knows how long that's going to be? There may be another 2 or 3 years, somewhere around there, until they're able to put that on the Xbox. But maybe, that'll be the next thing that comes, after possibly Final Fantasy. You know what? Let's just start with Final Fantasy VII Remake. Let's start there and move forward, because I do believe, now this is another interesting thing. I do believe that Forspoken, which, if I'm not mistaken, Square Enix was behind that. I think that had a 2-year exclusivity window with PlayStation. Matter of fact, let's see. How many years is Forspoken exclusive to PlayStation?
According to Wikipedia, the game is a PlayStation 5 console exclusive, alongside the PC version, for 2 years.
There you go. 2 years. So, when did that game release? What year did Forspoken release? 2023. Okay, so this isn't going to be even a possibility until after January 24th, 2025. So we're going to have to wait to see if that actually happens. But I'm thinking of it where if one of those games that once were exclusive to PlayStation were to come to Xbox, I think it would probably start with Forspoken. And I only say that because I know Forspoken was another game that got really bad reviews. It got chewed up and, spit out. Wasn't a good game by some, but y'all know my stance. Saints Row was supposed to be absolute garbage, if I went off of all of the reviews, and I actually enjoyed it. I thought it was a good game. Again, I got it on sale, but it wasn't nearly as bad as people made it out to be. But we'll definitely see what happens with the Square Enix situation, and we will keep our eyes and ears peeled to see what happens with this. But anyway, that is the end of the gaming news this week, which leads us into the final section of the podcast. And no, there won't be any video game theater this week. I'm trying to bring it back eventually, but let's get to the question of the week. And again, I know you guys saw it way earlier, when you first clicked on the episode, and I appreciate that, but let's go over it officially. Now, I alluded to this earlier in the episode, but let's go ahead and go over it. So, is Game Pass killing Xbox first party studios? The thing that I will say now, this was something that Phil Spencer said. He said something to the fact of, Game Pass was pretty much, and I'm not quoting him at all. So this is not verbatim, but he said something to the fact of, with Game Pass, they're able to pretty much have the developers get inside of Game Pass and create With Game Pass, you can leave the financial burden to us, so that you can create, do whatever you like. Game Pass will pretty much, it'll pretty much work as, kind of like a money machine, as it were, where you would be able to go out there and create, and they're going to put the games in the service, and you won't have anything else to worry about. Well, it seems like, the numbers, they aren't adding up. They're not continuing to grow. I'm sure not at the pace that they were expecting for them to grow in the time frame. And it seems like right now that is a problem, because why would you shut down an award-winning studio? Here it is. Microsoft, all of us know that Xbox for years, on top of years and years, had a problem with having studios. They didn't have enough first-party studios. You start getting your first-party studios in a row, start making some great strides in getting things in order, and all of a sudden you start dismantling the studios. Why? I mean, why would you do that? An award winner last year with Hi-Fi Rush shut that studio down. I think the founder of that studio, all he said was pretty much on Twitter, I think he said something like sad, and that was it. And he kept it moving, so the question that I have for you guys is, again, is Game Pass killing Xbox first party studios? Because if money wasn't a factor, I can only imagine that these studios would still be open. If Game Pass was making the money that they're claiming it was making, because let's not forget that Aaron Greenberg came out and said that Hi-Fi Rush was a success. It was a successful game. It did well financially, because it was a report back then. I don't know if it was Jeff Grubb. I think it was Jeff Grubb. Somebody brought up the fact that internally, people inside of Xbox or Microsoft were upset at how the game performed. But yet Aaron Greenberg went out there and he said, no, the game is doing great. And a year later, literally slightly over a year later, they get shut down. Redfall, they get shut down literally a year later. They didn't make it. Yeah, they might have made it a year. They got shut down. Now, some people can say that studio deserved it or whatever may have you. I don't believe that either, because they were forced to make that game. That was a game that they didn't want to make, but they had to. And because of that, that was the result that we got. That doggone Redfall game. And now they're shut down. Because before that, I believe they worked on Prey, which actually was a pretty good game from what I hear. I didn't play it, but I heard that was a pretty good game, and they got the short end of the stick when it came to that, them being shut down over Redfall, because they were forced into that situation. So, yeah, Game Pass isn't getting the subscribers. These game studios are shutting down. They're getting more lean. And it definitely brings up the question, what happens with these other smaller studios? Man, I'm going to tell you, God dog it, I hope that Ninja Theory does not shut down over Hellblade 2, because we know that is not a household name. The only advertisement they're doing is on Twitter. They're doing something different every day leading up to the game, but we're not seeing, I'm not seeing commercials for that game. I'm not seeing any billboards or coming soon or whatever may have you. I'm not seeing any of it. So the chances of that game actually getting out into the public eye for people that may have never heard of the game before, it seems slim to none. And it's, to be fair, it is a bit of a niche kind of game as well. That doesn't help it. So it being niche and all of that stuff, all I'm saying, man, is More advertisement would be great. But anyway, that is the question for this week. Again, is Game Pass killing Xbox first-party studios and not making the money? We were promised that this was going to do nothing but help with the Xbox brand. These guys could come in there and just create until their heart was content. Doggone Double Fine Studios, I don't know. They might be on the clock as well because it seems like Call of Duty is there now. They got the Bethesda Studios there too. I don't know, man. I mean, they got a couple of small studios there. Obsidian, maybe not a small studio, but definitely not as big as let's say Activision or Call of Duty, the kind of games that they make. So I think that this definitely does put a bit of a question mark on how many other studios are safe. I mean, it's already been rumors out there saying that more cuts are coming, Xbox's way. So what studio could unfortunately be next if they don't toe the mark? But anyway, I've been long-winded enough with this. If you want to be a part of the conversation, as always, you can either call in, and the phone number is 443-380-0281 and let your voice be heard, or you can email the show, and the email address is simply theanalogcirclepodcast@gmail.com. I was your host, Kiaun Mitchell, and I want to say thank you guys again. I really, really appreciate you guys being here and the support. So as always, guys, before we finally wrap this thing up and put a bow on it, always remember one thing. It is not about the consoles. It's about the game. So possibly on Wednesday, probably won't be Wednesday because I'm recording this on Monday. I'm late, but we may do it again later on this week, depending on you guys. If you guys actually call in. Oh, Cody Clark. He sent me an email and I forgot to read it. Cody, I got you, brother. I got you, man, on the next episode. But we're going to wrap this up and, until next time. When we do it again, you guys take care. Be safe out there. Bye-bye.